What's up, girlfriends? Welcome back to another episode of Shameless Ambition, the podcast. I'm Lynsey Justine.
I'm Justine Eno.
And this week we are coming at you with the best advice we've ever received. And I loved when you brought this up as a topic because I think it's just such a great topic for the podcast and to share the incredible tips from women in our life that have changed the game for us.
Yeah, we didn't think it up ourselves.
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm a product of so much advice from my mom over the years. Like,
I know. When
I sat down to make notes, I was like, where do I start? Because I just had my mom's voice in my head, all the things.
Yeah, I had just life advice, scrolling through my head of from a kid.
Right.
Early, to not take too much on your plate.
Yeah.
To, all the life lessons that have actually, really stuck with me to this day. And then that, I put into my kids, too.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe not knowing the importance of the advice at the time, but now, 10, 20 years ahead or, into it, you're like, oh, that really does make sense.
Absolutely.
It really clicks with you. But yeah. So.
What are some of the things that your parents used to say to you that wasn't necessarily advice, but just stuck in your head and is part of who you are as a mom now? One for me is my parents used to say all the time, children are to be seen and not heard.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Did you get that one lots?
Not that
Okay.
phrase, but my mom was actually just up this past weekend and we had an incredible visit, but we were Aria is coming to an age where it's actually when my parents got divorced.
Okay.
She's that age.
Right.
So it's really interesting for me to watch her. But so my mom and I were talking about it, and Aria was giving me some hardcore sass one of the nights.
Okay.
And I dealt with it my way,
Yeah.
with Aria. And my mom and I had a moment later, and she's like, I would have grabbed you by the arm and you would have been in your room. But we were talking about it and she's like, all I had to do in public was give you the look.
Right. Yeah.
And if I got the look, I was like, shit.
Right.
Oh.
I think every mom has that look.
Yeah, but it was with my dad too. So it was anytime, we're out driving, checking fields and we run into a neighbor and we have to pull over on the side of the road and chat for a half an hour and I have to sit there and look at the birds. It was you shut up.
Exactly.
You sit there and shut up.
That's right.
And there's no iPad, there's no phone, there's no nothing to the radio's off.
Yeah.
And if it was freaking Willie Nelson. It wasn't anything you wanted to jam to as a kid.
I feel our generation, and even all the generations before us, but we knew how to be bored. We had no choice but to just be bored sometimes. And our parents made it very clear, too bad, be bored. And exactly, you are just going to sit here while I have this conversation and
and you're going to shut up.
Be respectful. And, exactly.
So no, but I mean, obviously, I think both of our kids, both sets of our kids are very well behaved. Aspen, TBD, but the older ones, they're very well behaved in public. And when they're around other people, they Aria for sure has better manners around other people than me.
For sure.
And that is my expectation.
Yeah.
Which I think my parents set for me too. With Aria, I just let her know I'm her safe space, right? So if she needs to act a little, excuse language, bitchy or whatever it is, she can do that with me. There's a line for sure, but of course, if she needs to get some stuff out, I am her safe space, so that's okay. Right?
Of course,
so,
yeah.
But yeah, they always made me eat too. So
You're going to stay at the table till you're done your dinner? Or?
Mostly, they were lenient and try it, and if you don't like it, that's okay. They just wanted the effort of try the actual food.
Yeah.
But it was if you were at someone else's house, no matter what they cooked, unless you're deathly allergic, you eat.
That's right.
I don't care.
Yeah.
You eat it. So that was drilled into my head too as a kid of you just
suck it up.
You eat it. And I am not that person anymore. I'll be no thank you.
Yeah.
I'm an adult. I'll just get nuggets later.
I was just going to say, it's not chicken nuggets and fries. She's not eating it.
I did that at our award show that we went to for Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
And he knows me, all too well. So they come out with this, I don't even know what it was.
Yeah.
It was some sort of starter soup, but it looked like baby food with like green stuff on the top, and I like looked at it, and then Ty like looks at me and he's like, 1 sec. So he finishes his bowl, then switches our bowls so it looks like I ate mine, and then like eats half of mine. I was like,
hilarious.
That's a good husband.
Oh, he's such a great husband. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen you eat a salad.
Oh, I eat some salad.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like
You
a
like
lot of
what you
vegetables.
I asked you one time, I'm like, what's your favorite food? And without skipping a beat, you were like, pub food. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
for sure. I'm just like a gross pub, like
Do you
a
eat some
dive.
chicken wings?
Yeah,
like
that's my
poutine?
jam. Yeah, for sure.
I can get down with that.
Yeah. But yeah, so no, those, what about you? Speak
Well-
when spoken to.
Yeah, I mean, my mom was really big on like the pre-game chats. Like if she was taking us somewhere important, or if we were going into a store, she always set the expectations for how she expected us to act. And same thing, like if I just got that look, I knew. And my mom was always smiling, and so if she wasn't smiling, I knew it was like, okay, better straighten up here.
It was Candace.
Right? Yeah. But yeah, things like children are to be seen and not heard, which honestly as a kid used to make me so mad, but now that I'm an adult and like I have kids that are constantly around, it's like I find myself laying that one down every once in a while, because it's like, hey kids, buzz off, like this is adult time. And yeah, no, I don't know, so many fun anecdotes from being a kid, but like it just, like I said, this podcast, when I started thinking about it, my mom's words just started swirling in my head over the years. And one of the things that made such an impact on me was when I became a mom, and I really kind of lost sight for a little bit of who I was. Like, I'm sure every mom goes through that little bit of an identity crisis for a bit. Like, well, now it's just all about the baby. Everybody only cares about the baby.
Well, and
like,
you change. Like,
you
you're no
change.
longer your old person. I feel like you have to fully grieve that person.
For sure, but it was like my mom telling me one day, she said, you're still Lynsey. Yes, you're a mom now. Yes, this is the ultimate responsibility you will ever have, but you're still Lynsey. And that just resonated so hard with me, because I needed that safe space. I needed my mom to be my safe space, to remind me that like all the things that I was before I was a mom, I still am, and I don't have to let go. I'm just growing. And I feel like that changed the game for me, just moving into that new identity of motherhood.
Yeah, motherhood.
Right.
I know so many people say this, but it's so true. Like, there's nothing more true, I think, than when you have your own children, to be able to reflect back to your parents, right? Like, like the things they said, the things they did, it just all of a sudden they come into so much clarity, or there's so much forgiveness, right? For the mistakes they made, and because you're making them too.
For sure.
And you know, it's such a beautiful change in the parent-kid relationship. Because I think for a while we stopped, not that we ever stopped needing them, but we stopped needing them all the time, right? And then we go into parenthood, and then we're like, just kidding, we like, my mom's usually my first call.
Absolutely.
You know, like if I'm like, I need advice, or I forget a recipe, or how do I do this, right? Like, they're your first call, so all of a sudden you need them again, and that's really, really cool. But
absolutely.
Yeah, great advice, Margaret.
Right? Yeah,
Margaret. We've talked about this one before, but and I think we've both received this advice, obviously, from different people in different times in our life. But my grandma, who had passed long time ago, my mom's mom, she always used to tell us to sleep on it. And so she told my mom, and obviously my mom told me, but even like, you're mad at your partner, you're mad at your friend, you're mad at your boss, and we've talked about this so many times, but she would always just say, just to sleep on it. And if it's still bothering you in the morning, then maybe talk about it. But like, give it the night. So that one's a big one for me.
Incredible advice. And you know, it lends itself to that 24-hour rule that we talked about before, and it makes a world of difference. An absolute world of difference to just give yourself the time and space to calm your body and your emotions, and you know, be still with your thoughts and process, versus having a knee-jerk reaction that could be really reactive,
right? So like, I think when we're faced with anything like that, we like go into fight or flight, we protect ourselves, which is normal, that's totally fine. But when we're in that state, it's really hard to see the other person's point of view, or the whole situation as a whole. You're only looking at it from like your emotional side, or, you know, and that's okay, but it's heightened. So it's usually an overreaction. And if you can sit with it, you usually can see the other person's point of view or the situation as a whole. And it usually, you know, is not as big of a deal as you think it is, or as it feels, or you come at it with a better approach.
For sure. And things can sting really bad in the moment, and it hurts, and your, you know, gut instinct is to respond. But if you just let that sting settle down a little bit and heal a little bit, you realize that it's not as bad as you thought it was. And you can make a better plan to deal with it.
Totally. Yeah. So that's like probably the best advice. I stick with that a lot especially in my relationship of just like, you know, Ty will do something that will irritate me or hurt me or whatever. And I always just tell myself, if I feel the same way in the morning, I'll have a chat with him about it. 9 times out of 10, I don't feel the same way in the morning, and it's fizzled out, and it's like, oh, okay, like it's not really, I don't need to talk about it, you know? So yeah, I do find it quite helpful.
Well, it's like I've mentioned this on the podcast before. Some of the worst marriage advice I think I was ever given worst advice was never go to bed angry. And I feel like so many couples, this advice works for them and it's been carried on through generations, but it does not work for me. And I know that when my husband and I are going through a tense moment or a situation, or we're mad at each other, or we're arguing, it is so productive to just go to sleep and say, I love you, we'll reconvene in the morning, but we need to just put this to bed, and we need to go to bed.
I agree. But we always say goodnight, I love you.
Absolutely.
Like that always, that's like a no skip, I guess, for us. I know sometimes even like last night I was half asleep when Ty got home, and I heard him crawl into bed, and he said, I love you. And I was like half asleep, you know, but it's just a thing. Like, so no matter how mad we are, we always definitely give each other that affirmation that like, still love you.
Well, and on that note,
don't like you right now, but I love you.
I think another important piece of advice that I was given growing up was that to cherish each day and each moment, because we never know when it could be our last. And you know, like you and I, we end every conversation on the phone with I love you. We always say goodbye with I love you. And I think that that's such an important concept to keep at the forefront of our thoughts every day.
Yeah, I enjoy a lot of my family like that. Like I honestly do. And like I get razzed from some of my family of like, oh, Justine's just so loving. And I'm like, you know what though? You never know. Yeah. You never know if that's going to be your last interaction with that person. And I actually was yesterday trying to think of where I got this advice from, and I can't remember.
Me neither.
Who told me, so I'm sorry, whoever that is. But they said always like leave your conversation or your interaction good, because you just don't know. And I've been really fortunate to not lose too many people in my life. I've lost a few grandparents, but that's about it. So I consider myself quite lucky. But yeah, every conversation I have with any friends or family, I'm like, love you, bye. And you know, sometimes they say it back, sometimes they don't, but they know how I feel.
That's right.
But even if my dad sometimes will call me a couple times in a row because he'll forget something, and every time I'm like, love you. And he's like, yes, kid, love you too. Like,
I love your love, honestly. Like, your level of love reminds me a lot of Lorraine. And like,
and we have yet to meet.
I know. I'm dying for the day that you and Lorraine meet. You guys are going to be just kindred spirits right away. It's
just
love,
awesome. Love. Yeah.
I think I'm going to film it. It's going to be so great. But Lorraine has always been that friend for me that just, you know, everything about her aura is love. She just exudes love. And that was such a quality about you that I was so attracted to when we first met. And to have experienced somebody like that in my life. But she moved away like 7-8 years ago. And so I've been like lacking that person that just loves love like that. And it just like right away I was like, oh yeah, I'm super good with your love, girlfriend.
I do. I love a lot. Like I do. I definitely have a big heart. And I wear it on my sleeve, and I've had a lot of people tell me not to in my life, to guard my heart and, you know, protect my heart and not be so vulnerable. But like, so like, again, I have it wrote down on here, but like some of my best advice came from my yoga training, and my teachers just being like, just be vulnerable, just lean into the love. Like, it's okay, you know, and like, if people don't want it, they'll just not be around you.
Right?
So it's okay, right? It's just, I could never imagine leaving someone I love and saying goodbye and not telling them I love them.
Right.
I just couldn't.
No. Well, and you'll always have that peace of mind knowing that, like, if, heaven forbid, there's a loss, you know that was the last thing that you said to them, and you don't have to sit in, like, that was weird.
And even like when I leave your girls, I'm like, love you guys. You know, like I do. Like it's just, I just need people to know that I love them. So.
Well, and I mean, I think that you do still protect your heart in a way of like, if somebody doesn't reciprocate that to you, it's you're good with that, you're okay with that. It's not like you sit in it like, oh my God, why didn't my dad say I love you? Does he love me? Like it doesn't, you know, ruin your day or anything.
No, because then I was just calling back, and be like, Dad, why didn't you say it?
Start sending him memes.
Oh
like,
yeah,
I love you.
I would, yeah. I would, for sure. But no, it's okay, right? Like, yeah, people, this is my quote, my top one when we were thinking about it, of like this, after we hung up the phone of what we were going to talk about, I'm like, season, reason, or a lifetime.
Right.
And that's, you know, like where it is that that's the best advice in the world I've ever gotten. Like to this day, and it's number one on my list. And I got that from Kate Mack, my yoga teacher.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she just...
I had never heard that until I met you, actually. And you said it to me after you texted it to me. We had come over for family dinner, and we had just had our first family dinner, and I texted you afterwards and was just like, oh, that was so awesome. I love you so much. Thank you for everything. Like, I'm so excited about our friendship. And you wrote me back and you were like, some people come into your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, and this is a lifetime kind of friendship. And I remember like that just blowing my mind in the sense of it is so true. And it has helped me approach my relationships in a different way, understanding that some people are a season, some people are a reason, and some people are a lifetime. And I now kind of categorize people in my life in that way. And it helps me compartmentalize the amount of energy that I give to these relationships, because one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from Angela was to protect my energy and to learn how to do that.
My list
you have that there too? Awesome.
Yeah, I do. Like literally, protect your energy actually. I think it's on my next page. But yeah, it was...
Yeah, it's honestly changed my life in how I show up in the world. If I feel like I know something is going to be an energy drain, I will do my best to protect myself from that. And just say no and not prioritize that person or that thing, because time is finite. We only have so much of it in a day. And I just enjoy how I'm spending my energy so much more.
Yeah, my great advice. That advice for me came from one of my yoga mentors, the studio I worked at in Red Deer. Bonnie, and so she's a wonderful light of a person, but she is a tough cookie to crack, and she would be okay with me saying that because she knows that. She has some boundaries. I don't say walls, I say boundaries.
I love that for her.
And I asked her one day though, because I admire her a ton. She's went through so much in her life, taught me so much. And I asked her one day, I just said, like, sometimes to me, you come across cold. Is it me? Like, she's like, no, Justine, I'm just protecting my energy. And I was like, sorry, what? Like, I was kind of confused by it. And she's like, especially in the environment of teaching yoga, when you're there every day, people are there to receive your energy. So she obviously would give it during the class, but then sometimes after class, she would just have to remove herself and go upstairs or go do whatever she needed to do. Because she was protecting her energy. And that can be always perceived differently by some people. But I think it's so important because, I mean, your energy is what you have to put out there, right?
Your energy is your currency, right? Like, it is what you have to go out into the world and spend, and you want to spend it wisely. Like, you don't want to just be out there wasting your energy on things that aren't serving you in a positive, healthy way.
For sure. So I'm all for it. I'm still a work in progress on that because I definitely am like a yes person. I like to please people. But it's a work in progress, and that's okay. And it's like learning how to set boundaries and healthy boundaries with people or just expectations of myself, like setting boundaries with myself of what I'm really expecting myself to do and what's too much of an expectation of myself. So,
exactly. And I mean, I think that there are just obviously times in our lives where we go through these energy bursts where we have to give so much, and I think it's so important to make sure to plan time afterwards to recoup that energy.
I call it the emotional hangover.
Big time.
And it's a thing, like, to be, and I'm not necessarily emotional, but even like the mental hangover of emptying your cup, essentially, of energy, you know, like it takes a while, and lots of us have different ways to refill the cup. Some of it's like sitting with a best friend or watching junk TV or music or whatever, you know, or working out, going for a hike. There's so many different things that other people do to fill their cup, but it takes time, and you have to put the effort in to do that. And
I think back to post Shameless last year after the conference, like that just took so much energy, an amount of energy that I have never had to deliver before in my life. And thankfully I knew that I was going to absolutely crash afterwards. And so
you wrote the out of office response for that, following 2 weeks. You were like, I'm done, guys.
I went home on Sunday morning after we cleaned up, and I had Emma and Megan with me. They had spent an extra night because Emma knew that crash was coming, and she just wanted to be there to sit with me. What an excellent friend.
And Emma. I was so glad she was like, and
it was incredible. And like, I got home that day, Mike had gone to Costco, stocked us up on all the Costco's.
He knew it was coming as well.
You know, flats of Bud Lights, you know, jugs of orange juice.
You didn't have to go anywhere.
I didn't have to go anywhere. He knew I needed to crash that day, and we sat on the deck. It was a beautiful day in March, and we just crushed BLs and talked about the conference and just decompressed. And honestly, I wrote a mental and emotional hangover from Shameless for about a month afterwards. Like it was that long for me, because it was such an expenditure of my energy, which I mean is great. I'm so happy I did it, but it's not something I can do all the time. No. And I think of nights like even Industry Night last Thursday. It's such a large night, and I know going into it, I kind of have a little routine now where I go in early, I sit down, I have a salad, I eat, I, you know, just get myself organized, read through the itinerary, and kind of start to ramp up my energy for the night. And then I just blow energy all over the brew house for 3 hours, and then I 100%. Sit and I calm down for an hour afterwards. And
my post Industry Night bath is the best.
Oh, I
jump into that bath and I'm like,
just woo-saw.
Well, because you have to be on, for us on Industry Night, it's like we're the energy.
Oh, exactly. And I know that, which is fine.
So it's like, okay, Energizer Bunny full mode now.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, I should take some pre-workout next time before Industry Night and see if that makes a difference. I honestly felt like I had done a leg day.
Oh, I know. We should count our steps on Industry Night is what we should do. And when I'm not pregnant, we'll like shotgun a Red Bull.
Yeah.
When I'm not pregnant.
When you're not pregnant.
Yeah. Actually, it was the cutest thing. Lynn's went into the gas station the other day. We were in the car, and she's like, "Hey, can I get you a Red Bull?" And I was like, "That's gonna be a hard no, but thanks for the rub-in."
And then I'm like, "Maybe a sugar-free one?" She's like, "Lynsey, I can't have energy drinks while I'm pregnant." I was like, "Oh, okay, fine."
Oh yeah, they're new. Were their energy drinks really popular when you were pregnant?
I mean, I don't recall whether or not I drank energy drinks. I don't think so. They've never really been a big part of my life, but I still drank a ton of coffee while I was pregnant.
Oh yeah, cheers to that.
Exactly.
I'm all for the deli meat and caffeine, guys.
Totally.
So it's all good.
Yeah.
We're not judging here. Okay, so let's continue on then. Oh, talking about not judging, I got a good one.
Lay it on us.
This is from my therapist. #therapy is great for everybody.
That's right.
She's back in Red Deer. Her name is Tara Simpson, so look her up. She's absolutely amazing. But anyway, she gave me this analogy once. So this is more than a quote or just like a snippet of advice. It's going to be about a minute of an analogy. But so she basically sat with me one day. We were talking about me taking on other people's problems, emotions, thinking too much about what other people think of me, you know, those sorts of things. And she goes, "All right, Justine, I'm going to give you a situation. You come over to my house and I offer you a cup of coffee and a cookie." And I was like, okay. She's like, "So you take the cup of coffee and I put the cookie down in front of you, but you don't want the cookie." I'm like, okay. And she's like, "So do you take the cookie or do you not take the cookie?" I was like, well, if I didn't want it, like I probably wouldn't take the cookie. And she's like, right. So I need you to think of that cookie as someone's negative thought, someone's negative energy, someone's negative opinion, or someone's emotions that aren't yours. It's not your cookie. So if you don't take the cookie, it's not your cookie. It's still the other person's cookie. So it can sound a little dirty depending on your definition of cookie.
But I love this one so much because you've told me this story before, and there's been lots of times where you've said to me, like, Lynsey, it's not your cookie. And it's like that snap back to reality of like, I didn't want that cookie.
I don't want it.
It's not my cookie. And it's just like, and gone.
Yeah.
You know, like just, and let go.
Yeah. There's a song by a girl with Chanel, West Coast. Anyway, but it's like, it's about her cookie. So now after I heard that song, I'm like, okay, well now that analogy, it just makes me laugh sometimes because I'm like, it's not your cookie, Justine, but it is so true. My dad says it's not your, what does he say? It's not your monkey in your jungle or something. I don't know. So I know there's lots of like
analogies
to that, but it is, you know, however you want to look at it, it's not yours if you don't take it.
Exactly.
And it's up to you whether you take it or not. And if you do, then that's fine, but you accepted it, so take it willingly. But it is always your choice.
Well, and I think that's such powerful advice because we can choose what takes up space in our head and in our hearts, and we don't have to make space for those things.
No.
And, you know, what other people think of me is none of my business, and I don't even remember where I heard that over the years, but I remember hearing that one time and I was just like, it really isn't any of my business, and I don't want to be a nosy bitch, so I'm just gonna stay out of it.
I am super nosy, not gonna lie, guys.
Yeah.
But not in like a gossipy way where I'd like, but I love, like, I'm gonna be one of those old people in an old folks home, just like kneel in my chair, like up to Ethel's door. Like, you know,
her granddaughters come to visit.
Totally,
today.
I love, but in such a kind way, like
in a curious way.
But I love to like go sit at the mall and just watch people.
Oh, people watching is the best anywhere.
My mom and I used to like drive around and look. Okay, so this sounds creepy, but we weren't doing it in a creepy way. But when like you drive by and you can see in someone's living room and you'd be like, oh, look at their furniture. It'd be really nice. I'm such a nosy person in that way. So, but yeah, in a kind way. But yeah, it is none of our business what other people think about us. And I think that that's huge.
Well, honestly, it's just so freeing to just be so good with, like, feel the way you want to feel. Cool. I like myself, so
yeah,
I'm good.
That's it. And as long as you know, too, like, once you have a village of people that you love and you trust, it's like, you're good. Because you have some people that you can fall back on, whether it's family or friends or both. And the rest really doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's just such a nice headspace to get into when you can just let go of the weight of other people's thoughts. And
well, then I think you also, when shedding that, you also shed a little bit of inauthenticity. Is that the word? Do you know what I mean? Like, so you're shedding the piece of you that tries to please other people and being a different person. So you're becoming more your authentic self, because if you're less concerned about what people are going to say about you, you're going to be more free in who you are, because you're worried less about impressing them or leaving what they want to see out there.
Well, and you never know what somebody else is going through in their day, and maybe why they took you a certain way, or like, I mean, nobody can say everything right all the time. It's just impossible. We're all going to mess up. We're all going to say the wrong things sometimes. I do it all the time. Yeah. But all we can do is own what we say and own what we meant by it, and how other people absorb that is on them. So
that's like not taking things too personal.
Yeah.
So, and like here, another piece of advice I was given was from an Ayurvedic coach I had in Red Deer, and she kind of was my therapist as well. So like we would have a chat every month or twice a month together, and she would always ask how my life was going, and she has that soul that you could just pour yourself into. So I was talking to her, and I know I've said this to you, but she said it to me one day, and I was really offended for like a minute, and then I was like, okay. But I was going through something, and she's like, okay, Justine, so how long are you going to be a victim today? And I was like, ooh. whoa, like,
yeah,
are we actually friends? Like, I
Yeah.
thought we were friends. Like, I was taken back, and she's like, I love you, but you're not that special. And I was like, where is this conversation going? Like,
special.
what are you talking about? But we dove into it, and I'm glad I didn't hang up the phone on her, because again, it's been great advice to, one, not let myself sit in the victim role.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying that to anybody who has been victimized. Like, that's real, that exists, but we choose to sit in that seat for as long as we want,
Yeah.
right? So we have to do the work and heal, but we can get out of that seat. It's a choice to get out
That's
of the
right.
seat. And then the you're not special part was more of like, you're not unique to these problems.
That's right.
Like, it's not, you're not so special that this is like so big, it's just happening to you. It's happening to hundreds of other people. Other people have went through this. You're not special to it, you know? And I was like, oh, damn.
Well,
And it, yeah, so.
it's so true though, and like, no matter what you're going through, there's probably somebody out there, there's guaranteed somebody out there having a much worse day than you.
100%.
For sure. And
2 arms, 2 legs.
exactly,
We're good,
right?
right? Like,
Well,
yeah.
and on that note, you know, another just bombshell piece of advice my mom gave me years ago was that we don't have pity parties. We
No.
don't do pity parties. Obviously, there are times where we do need to just sit with our emotions and deal with them and ask ourselves the hard questions, but you get one day, girlfriend. Like,
Yeah.
that's all I will personally give you is one day. You can sit, you can be sad, you can cry, you can be angry, you can yell, you can scream, do whatever you need to do in your one day. But then you got to get up and face the world the next day,
For sure.
because it's not going to stop turning. Your problems
No.
are not going to go away. So now you got to get out there and figure out how you're going to solve them.
Yeah, and I, like, I say the 2 arms, 2 legs. Tyler says that all the time
Yeah.
to our kids. And I say that with like a grain of salt, because obviously if we have someone listening and they're missing any limbs, like obviously I feel like
Yeah.
extremely bad, but it is just the analogy of simply like 9 times out of 10, what you have is like greater than what somebody else has, right? And they're still getting out of bed. They're still, you know, doing all these things. So you have really no reason not to. When people who have way less are
Exactly.
in that mind frame. This is just a side note, but my mom was up with my stepdad this past weekend, and they took Aria bowling.
Oh, nice.
And as they went the Special Olympics, they had like an event going on for bowling.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, those things, like I said to Aria, I'm like, look at them. Like, these kids have so many hurdles in their day to get through, to even like wake up and get out of bed. And they're like, so what's your excuse?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, you have to get up and you have to do your part, right? So.
Well, and that may seem like a little bit of a powerful statement that we're making, in the sense of like, get out there, figure it out. Like, you've got to put your best foot forward, but nobody's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
So the important thing to remember is that if you don't want to feel that way anymore, it is on you, girlfriend, to make those changes. And you have to consciously acknowledge, okay, now where am I going to put my energy? Now, how do I want to feel? Who do I want to surround myself with? Like, these are all choices that you can make in the moment. There's always a choice.
Yeah, I think there's so much power in reading other people's stories and getting advice from other people. But you can do so much research on people who, you know, have been in massive car accidents, or horrible things have happened and they've been paralyzed, or all of these things, and you know, doctors say they won't walk, and it was their mindset, it was their work ethic, it was their like, no way, I'm giving up on myself. And I'm sure they had days where they did, but it was the consistency, right, of showing up for themselves as much as they could, and they have, or they've made progress that doctors never thought they would. So it just goes to show the power of your mindset. No matter what you're going through, your mindset will pull you out of it if you put enough effort into it. Well,
that makes me think of, you know, heavyweights like Brendan Burchard, James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. These guys had these incredibly traumatic experiences. They were both in pretty intense accidents, and they were really nothing, extraordinary before. However, they had to recover from something incredibly traumatic that changed their lives. And it was their mindset that got them through it and brought them to where they are today. And in reading their stories, I find so much power in knowing that I have that power in my brain to if these guys can do what they did, and it all came down to their habits, their mindset, their choices, their goals and ambitions, their grit, their perseverance, their resiliency. It's like, okay, I can have grit, I can persevere, I can be resilient, I can be all of these things if I make the choice to be them.
Yeah, I think of TJ Lavin.
Right? TJ was in a massive accident, and remember that episode where they brought him back?
I cried.
For the first time?
I cried. I ugly cried in front of the TV.
Oh.
I was because we didn't know if he was going to be the host.
I know, what a legend.
But he he had to learn to rewrite, how to write again, how to feed himself again, all of these things, and so you're just whoa. It helps you get perspective a little bit, right? Of not that all problems are relative. And this was something, another great piece of advice I got from Kate Mack, was that we should never compare each other's struggles.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
So especially and this is a huge advice when I think you're sitting down with a friend, and they're okay, blah, and they just need to let something out. The worst response I think you can have is oh my gosh, when I went through that.
I love that you brought this up. Yeah.
No, you need to sit in their experience and not, I think there's such good intention to relate to them when you're trying to be oh yeah, I know what you're feeling because I went through it and this is what I experienced. You're trying to relate to them. You're trying to let them know that they're not alone. But I think that most of the time what we do when we respond that way is take away from them and bring it right back onto us. And not that we're intending to, but that's usually the result of it. And you have to sit in a space and not compare, because their journey up to that point is different than yours, and everyone's experience is different. And just because someone has a horrible experience doesn't mean your experience isn't horrible as well.
That's right.
There's no comparison at all. But it helps shift in perspective that no matter how hard the shit is, you can get yourself out of the shit.
That's right.
Essentially.
Well, and I remember kind of hearing that years ago of listening to Respond, where you are taking that power away from that person in the moment. And I've really actively tried to change how I respond in moments like that, because I know how it feels when I'm just trying to be heard. I'm just trying to share what I'm going through. And for somebody to immediately say, essentially, I already went through that, it just it doesn't feel good.
I feel it undermines what you're going through.
It does.
And again, I know that usually that response is not what you're trying to do. You're trying to relate with them and be girlfriend, I've been there. I got you. I know it sucks. You're trying to be that relatable friend. So there's not usually ill intent, but yeah, it's usually received with ill intent, I guess.
I think so too. Yeah. And it just takes the focus off them in that moment. And I personally have seen the benefit of my conversations getting better and deeper and more empathetic when I'm listening just to listen and to
all you need to respond really is I'm so sorry you're going through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it.
Exactly.
And especially too, we're all so different. Completely different makeups. So how you experience something is going to be different than even how your best friend or someone close to you is going to, how you respond, how you feel about it. It's all going to be different. So just, that was good advice. You said listen to hear, not respond.
Exactly.
Essentially. And mine was, what did I say? I don't even know. Mine was more of a
not
story.
comparing.
Not comparing the struggles. I think and that is it's that one-upper in the room, where you're one time this happened, and then you're okay, but then this happened to me, and you're
don't be the one-upper.
Just don't.
Just be at the same table.
100%.
So, I want to share a few tips on productivity that just kind of changed the game for me. And I love when we give shout outs to Jackie because she's just such a boss. But
Yes.
Jackie told me once years ago to be all about efficiency. And I remember watching her just move in her space and just do the things that she does. And I was always so blown away by how much she gets done. And she just said to me one day, she's like, Lynsey, it's simple. Just be about efficiency. Like, plan your day so it's efficient. Plan your activities so they're efficient.
Totally.
Like, think about what tomorrow you needs to get done today. And
I tell myself that all the time. Later you
changer.
will love you. Later
Exactly.
you will love you. And then later me always loves me.
Totally. I always say, like, do things that future you will be grateful for.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really strive for in, you know, approaching my productivity is like, okay, if I can't do this in this moment, what's something else that I could do that I'll be grateful for?
Yeah, basically
And
don't procrastinate.
don't procrastinate, exactly. And, you know, like, even on a more just kind of personal life level, my mom told me years ago, Lynsey, just do a load of laundry every day.
Yeah.
One load every single
I
day.
actually took that advice from her. I don't do it every day, but I now do laundry like 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you're still doing the same amount of laundry, but it's just not so much at once.
Well, it doesn't
right?
feel overwhelming, and I hate when it piles up. Like, life is full, it's busy, and the laundry is always going to be there. We do the dishes every day. Like, let's just throw in a load of laundry every day. We're a family of 4, and
Reminds me of that commercial. We do it every night. It's like about starting the dishwasher.
every night. But yeah, so it's just like, I feel like those little efficiency tips have, you know, changed the game for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my sister Candace cracks me up because for years we've had this saying between us that you can't do nothing, you have to do something. And so in any moment you have to be doing something. You're always doing something. And it's not necessarily about like crushing out the massive to-do list, but acknowledging the fact that we're always doing something.
Totally.
And to be able to choose what we're doing in that moment.
Yeah. I think I've said this on a podcast. I don't have it wrote down here, so I don't know it off the top of my head. Or on a past. Did I say future podcast? I meant past podcast. But anyway.
Baby brain.
Yeah. It was basically, it's a idea from Buddha to like never leave a room dirtier than you found it. Or a space. Or a person. Or anything worse than when you found it. You always should leave things better. So I kind of in that same thing try to always, like, if I'm walking through a room, or there's like a one-touch premise, right? If you're walking with something, don't just set it down. Go put it away where it belongs, and it's just way easier, you know? Yeah, efficiency.
Well, it's like, you know, we're both waitresses from back in the day, and like the concept
Bring me back.
the concept of just clean as you go is just so life-changing. Like, honestly, exactly. If you're moving from one room to another and something belongs over there, just pick it up and move it.
Just put it
and,
away.
like, clean as you go. Same thing. It's a regular activity that has to happen every day, so just do it every day.
Put it away.
That's right.
I mean, I'm still working on it with the fam, but you know, it's okay. Just put it away. Do you have any more on efficiency?
That was all my productivity life advice.
I shared this one on my Instagram the other day. I don't know if this famous person got it from someone else, so I don't want to like say he created it. I don't know. But there is a artist out there right now. His name's Jelly Roll, which makes me laugh. But he's actually pretty amazing as a person if you want to look into his story. But he won, I want to say, a Grammy or some sort of music award for being the New Artist of the Year.
Right. I think it was a Grammy.
I'm not sure which one it was, but it was one of the music awards. And in his speech, and it went viral on TikTok, so you might have already heard it, but he says the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason.
I love that.
And that, I like had to save it, and I listened to it probably like 10 times, and I was like, and it's a part of a way bigger motivational speech you should probably listen to because it's great. But I was like, whoa. Yeah. Like we all are guilty of looking backwards. I know that. Like to say, don't look back. Like we all do. I think that there's power in reflection. But I think that after we reflect, we do need to let it go.
Well, you can't change it.
Yeah.
That's honestly my constant reminder when the past creeps in and I feel weird about things or stressed or anxious. Just remind myself I can't change it. All I can do is look forward and be better and make different choices. And I love that. Like, look stay focused on the windshield.
Yeah.
Not the rear view mirror.
Yeah. His whole thing was, it actually like makes me teary-eyed, but he's I think 40, 45-ish and won Best New Artist of the Year. So it's kind of just about, you know, like you're never too old to stop dreaming.
That's right.
Or to stop going, and like you can accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. It's never too late to start. And I know we've talked about that.
Well, it's like I shared a reel recently on Instagram. I can't remember who the speaker was in the reel. I wish I did. Just beautiful woman in her later age. And she said, you know, if you didn't make it in your 20s, you can make it in your 30s. And if you didn't make it in your 30s, you can make it in your 40s. And if you didn't make it in your 40s, you can make it in your 50s. And so on. It really is never too late to start again. But, you know, on that topic, start now, because tomorrow is not promised.
Totally.
So
just do it.
All the things like that you want to do, like just do them. Just start messy. That was some of the best advice I ever got too, was just start messy, and you'll learn and grow from there. And even with this podcast, like we've come so far from the first episode of this podcast. Yeah.
And Tyler's been like, I've taken that advice from you guys. Just start.
Right. Yeah.
Just start. Like, whatever.
Well, and I mean,
we'll figure it out.
It's easy for us to say because we are safe in the fact of like when we put stuff out there, we're comfortable with whatever we say. Mm-hmm. We own whatever we say.
Yeah.
And being able to just start and not worry about judgment is not necessarily something that everybody can do.
I don't think we don't worry about judgment. I mean, there's been sometimes I thought, as I've said something on here and I'm like, ooh, okay, but it's okay. I believe in it. Like, I will stand behind it. And I'm good with like, and I think maybe that's where you were going with it, is we truly do believe everything we say, and we live it, we breathe it, we think it. So if someone were to come at us with something like, we're like, it's okay, this is just our belief, and
exactly,
we're okay. But I mean, there might be judgment out there, but that's okay.
Like, to be honest, like, we just are who we are, and we understand that our brand is, and Arlene Dickinson said this, I have this in my notes, that your brand is your essence as perceived by others. And so what we're putting out into the world is our essence, and however people perceive that essence is, you know, in their own mind's eye. And I think we're just really good with however people perceive that, because it could be from one end of the spectrum to the other. And again, we don't know what's going on in people's lives or why their brains work the way that they do. And so I personally invite any listener to just absorb what we say however you absorb it. I mean, we're trying to share context and our best intentions, but it's also, at the end of the day, we understand that it has a different impact for different people. So.
And we're like, we would never ever expect people to just like agree with us.
Of course not. We invite you to disagree with us.
That's not it. And just, I think that we're just comfortable enough in sharing our beliefs and our opinions and our stories and our advice, and it's like a take it or leave it, you know, it's all good. And we definitely understand one recipe doesn't fit all. So that's just because something works for myself or works for Lynsey doesn't mean it's going to work for you. We're just having the conversation, I think, is like the biggest thing, is starting to have the conversation. And especially in the Grand Prairie area, like we were just at the Women's of Influence luncheon for International Women's Day. And it's just about like breeding this culture of inclusivity for all women, no matter what our beliefs, religion, opinions, whatever are. Obviously, I think that most of us women have the general moral of like, as long as you're not harming anyone, we're good to go. There's obviously that line to cross between wrong and right, but other than that, like, we just want everyone to feel comfortable being themselves together. That's okay. That's what we're going for. And we know that in order to cultivate that culture, we need to start it. Like, we have to put it out there.
You know, and
we have to talk the talk and walk the walk.
Exactly. So. And I feel really proud of how we show up in those situations, and we charge up our energy for that kind of stuff because we're prepared to share it and to give it away in those moments and lend it to anyone who might need it, because we want girlfriends to feel safe with us. We want you to express your thoughts, dreams, opinions, feelings. And actually, this reminds me of a conversation in the hotel room at Shameless Ambition on Saturday night at like 2 a.m. Somehow you and Emma got talking politics and but the thing that I loved so much about this conversation was how incredibly respectful you both were of each other and each other's thoughts. And it was wild to see how naturally and organically the conversation flowed in a way of mutual respect. And it was a perfect demonstration of two women who admire and respect each other having a very healthy disagreement about a pretty polarizing topic. And it was just like emotional maturity at its finest, which for 2 a.m. after Shameless is like...
And you know what the best part it was? As soon as it started going not that direction, right? Because politics gets heated, especially when you have two very different views.
That's right.
It's because very unlikely you're going to meet in the middle. But it was, I don't know who it was. Was it you or Shannon? I don't know who it was. But someone was like, okay, let's change the conversation. And instantly, like, both Emma and I changed the conversation. And I don't even, like, it's all good, right? But I think that this is what actually, like, now that we're on the conversation, what blows my mind is that we live in a democratic country and people get so offended when the people they don't vote for gets voted in. And I'm like, welcome to a democracy. Like, you might not agree with it, but that's the country we live in, right? And sometimes the people you want to win don't win. And here we are. Yeah. And I think that it makes you a bigger person in your beliefs and a stronger person in your beliefs and opinions when you are open to hear someone else's.
That's right.
I think when you get instantly defensive and angry at someone for having a different opinion, I feel like you're unsure in yours.
Absolutely. And so you don't know what your boundaries are. I mean, on the topic of polarizing conversations, I do not talk about sex, drugs, politics, or religion with very specific people for a reason. Those conversations are held in very safe spaces where I know that I'm free to express my thoughts and, but you just never know how people feel about them. And so I try to be quite
they're just
considerate.
They're deep topics.
They're deep topics, and everybody is, I guess they have a right to feel however they feel. It's a product of their childhood, their conditioning, their exposure to whatever, and
their journey.
It just is what it is. So I'm not out to change anybody in that regard. It's just
well, we were actually this is side note again story. We were at the award ceremony that I was talking about earlier, and we actually met one of the NDP MLA leaders for the area up there. And she's an Indigenous woman. So she came up to my husband and I to talk to us about mostly being Indigenous. Turns out her and I have like the same lineage last name. So we might be like 10th cousins or something. I don't know. But anyway, wonderful lady. Like, I loved having the conversation with her. She was such a light and brought something up about Tyler and I supporting her. And we were like, sorry. Sorry, maybe switch teams and we'll vote, but like, no, sorry, like we're just, and I'm open with that, so like that's why I'm sharing, but I think it's okay to be like candid like that. I'm like, don't just, sorry, like you're just not who I vote for, but I like, again, I'm sitting here still reminiscing about the conversation I had with her, and it was wonderful. It had nothing to do with who she was as a person.
Exactly.
I just don't support her political party.
Cool.
Totally, right? But like, I would definitely go have a coffee or a drink with her or whatever.
Nice.
And so I think that goes to show, right? Like, we can all have different opinions on those heavy topics, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the connection you could have with that person. Like, you have to look past those things, because those things they don't really make you who you are, like you're more than those things.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And we're all just human at the end of the day.
Like, we all bleed red.
That's right. You probably got a handy dandy little quote to close us out with, hey?
I do. Let me get my other book.
Her other book.
So I was thinking about a quote, excuse me, for today's podcast, and it's hard to find quotes on advice other people give you.
Oh.
So I got thinking, and I was like, what is my favorite quote on the theme of the best advice we've ever gotten? What's the best quote that's ever fallen into my lap or had the biggest impact on me? So this is it. I think I said it maybe podcast 1 or 2 that we did. It's my favorite quote. It's unknown. So again, if anyone knows the author, please let me know. But this quote has hit a lot of people that I've read it to throughout the years. So, if there is one thing that I may tell you, let it be that you are home. Your body is the only house that you will ever truly own. It may have some broken windows and there may be tear stains on the floor. Maybe you lock the things that you wish you were or weren't behind its many doors. But there is a wisdom on its bookshelves and a laugh to light up the rooms. There is a vase upon the table where the love you've grown all blooms. Dreams sit on the mantelpiece next to kindness and your trust, where you use them all so often they have no time to collect any dust. So please do not look at the mansions with the envy in your eye. There is more that makes a home than its appearance or its size. Your body is your shelter, so you deserve to love it all. Don't let the world stand around outside and tell you what color or how to paint your walls. How lucky that you have somewhere to protect you from the night. And if there are cracks left from the past, well then, they just let in more light.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let anybody pick my colors.
Right? No, I paint my own colors.
That's right.
Yeah. That one's definitely stuck with me. I've read it in so many yoga classes. But yeah.
Well, honestly, I think we could share so much valuable advice that we've been given over the years. And now that we've done this podcast, I'm going to start really collecting it and writing it down because, like, I sat down and was just flooded. But that's okay.
Yeah.
I got to just, share my flood on the podcast. So,
yeah, I love it. Flood away. All right.
Thanks for listening, girlfriends. We'll
See you
get you
next
back
week.
next week. Have a great weekend.
Bye.